enough. Um, Jumping into episode 7, and we were given the preface of surrounding Michael Jordan's retirement, and obviously we spoke a little bit last week over all the naysayers and doers that whispering in MJ's ear that he has to be the greatest, this and that. What really entails to Michael Jordan's retirement? What's your thought process on that?
What led to his retirement?
Yeah.
Uh, I think it was a plethora of things. As you look at, I guess it was episode 7, I believe. It was
Mhm.
really eye opening, Tony. As to, and let me put that on the screen as we're talking about that, so folks know what particular MJ retirement. But here we go. So I think it was a plethora of things, man. As you look at it, you see, as I talked about last week, how Mike handled the pressure so well. He handled that pressure of being the biggest star in the world, being a global icon, talking to kids, having a perfect image, all of that, and still winning at a high level. All of that is so tough. And so I think it kind of just weighed on him. You know, Mike was playing nonstop for 10 years at that point at a high level, trying to win, getting beat up by the bad boys. And then as they talked about with the Jordan Rules book written by Sam Smith, and once that book came out and kind of started putting some crack in the armor of the perfect image of Jordan, and teammates kind of began to talk about the person that he was in practice and that he wasn't this golden boy. And then the media began to pounce on him about his gambling issue and things of that nature. And then his father died, you know, and who he was very, 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 very close to, you know, who was his right hand man. His father died in the way it did. And so I think the pressure of basketball and then the media began to kind of blame him and say, was his father killed as a piece of his gambling issues or what have you?
Mhm.
Because I'll be honest with you, until I saw this documentary, that's what I thought. That's why I thought his father was killed, because of his gambling issue and the mob took him out. That was the narrative that has been floating for years. And so I'm thankful that I saw this documentary and they, you know, laid it out that it was just a random killing by his father, the person who killed his father.
Yeah.
But I think it was the pressure of the game. He was worn out. I mean, winning has a price and it wears you out, right? You're carrying a franchise. The media's beating up on you. You're trying to be this perfect person. There's so much going on. Then you lose your closest friend. I just think he was at a breaking point, and it was just time for him to just kind of take a break and just kind of recalibrate and rethink life and kind of mentally refresh.
I'm glad we can use the previous episodes as talking points to be able to arrive at the question now. We talked about Jordan and you said, and I think it was stated. I want to say it was episode 8 when winning comes at a price, and the things that you must do to remain number one. And in a physical league that was the NBA back then, and that was players coming for Jordan's heads every
Mhm.
way he looked. They said, I want to say it was correct me if I'm wrong on this, the '92 All Star game, where they said you could look at Jordan and just tell that he was tired, or he just
Tapped
wasn't
out.
all the way there. And yeah, he was tapped out, and that happens when you've done everything you could year after year after
Mhm.
year to remain on top, especially that Bulls team, who we say is arguably the best team in NBA history.
Right.
And for what Jordan had to do, and being the guy that had to rally everyone in the locker room, being the guy that had to get players in check, being the guy that was going back and forth with upper management, going back and forth with sponsors, and going back and forth with the fans and how people
Mhm.
perceived him, it takes a toll. And when you get to the point where you lose what is your best friend, your number one fan, the person that's been in your corner and could do no wrong when everything else is going on wrong around you, when that person suddenly vanishes,
Yeah.
as his father did, that's the that's the nail in the coffin. That's the
But, but you know what?
who's still fighting for Jordan at this point.
You know what? I just thought about something though, and it makes me think about something. Think about how, you know, and Jordan said, like you said, in the summer of '92, he told that reporter that he was gonna quit. He was just kind of over it playing.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it: you're playing basketball. You're playing probably 100 games every year for the past 6, 7 years. and then you're winning the championship while other teams are on the couch. But I just thought about something. That also, if that's the reason why Jordan retired, amongst all things, he was just kind of body worn down, tired. It also makes me appreciate LeBron James a little more as I think about this. I just had this thought as we were talking about
That's
this.
all right. Yeah, that's all right.
Because LeBron went to the finals 8 consecutive years. Now Jordan had a little break in there. He had a break, 2 years when he left the league. But LeBron, 8 consecutive years, he was in the NBA finals. You're talking about 100 games or more, scoring 30 plus points a game, carrying his team. And he just continues to play at a high level. So it makes me appreciate him a little more as we talk about this. But like you said, Jordan was just at a breaking point, and it was just important for him. So, as you watch it and you just realize that he's at peace with that he was able to do that, and he made his own decision. And I like what Bulls owner Jerry Reinsdorf said in the press conference. He said, "I'm happy for Michael because he's making his own decision, and we're just here to support him." Because Michael was doing so much for everybody else for so many years, but I think that decision was just important for him to just say, "I want to take back my life and enjoy the game." I mean, get away from the game, rather.
And speaking to Jordan and what he did for so many people, obviously when you're the leader, when you're the number one guy, you spend a lot of time having to monitor and mitigate everyone else. But again, like I said, who's doing those things for Jordan? Who's watching out for Jordan? I mean, on the court, obviously you got your teammates and everything that could be happening with them. But when you look at a guy that had to take the reins by himself, that had to bring a franchise out the depths of being terrible by himself, and eventually being surrounded by all these guys, that he still had to keep in line. Remember when Scottie Pippen was going through things, when Dennis Rodman was going through things, who was still, we said it last week or the week before, who was going to be the glue to hold everything together? That was Michael Jordan. And which leads us to this question, how much did James Jordan's death play into his decision to retire? Well, it was obvious that I believe it played more than half the reason he did retire, because again, when that person that's been in your corner for so long, or the person that's defending you when nobody else is no longer around, and you have to face all the criticism and angst by yourself, that's really hard to have to deal with when it's just you. At this point, a lot of Jordan was still Jordan late in his career. That's one thing I don't think we're really bringing up when watching this documentary. And because you have to do this for so long, and credit to LeBron James, right, for being able to be the voice of the NBA now, to be able to be the voice of the players now. So, and honestly, I think in this days of time, it's a lot easier because LeBron is the A1 guy off of the court, and he doesn't have the same, or what we would call, bad stripes that Jordan has. So it's a lot easier for LeBron to be able to Harlem shake through the pressure. Whereas whereas Jordan, this is a yearly thing. This is even in baseball he was getting attacked. Like the man never caught a break.
Yeah, he's just a punching bag. But let me just say this. He and his father were so close. I mean, you sit and watch it, man. It's admirable to look at their relationship and the way his father was just so supportive of him in his career. I mean, they even got to the point where his father would do media appearances for him and speak to the press on behalf of Michael when Michael didn't feel like talking, because he was an extension of Michael and he could speak for Michael as well. And so for anytime you lose a parent, that is devastating. It's devastating. But Michael's dad was his, I won't say his crutch, but his comfort zone going through such a highly visible position. And his dad was kind of that equalizer for him to help him make it through some situations and keep him even keel. And for his father not to just die, but to be murdered, I think it was just extremely difficult for him. So I think that played a huge decision. I think that was probably at least 65 to 70% of why he retired from the game of basketball.
And again, you related to it earlier, them tying in his gambling issues in relation to his father's death. I think it's a mental thing at that point when you look at it and say, okay, I can tackle. We said it before. Rodman said it best. He said, I could play this game for free. I
Mm-hmm.
get paid for the BS. And
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
think sometimes the BS just becomes too much. And
Right.
when the NBA has the nerve to take my individuality and try to attack one of my own personal situations with that, I think that can set anybody off. How dare the media say that my
Mm-hmm.
not even a habit. He said gambling to him is just fun. He
Yeah.
did it. He did that to break away in the midst of a playoff run. Yeah, it didn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that. It didn't mean that he didn't care about the game. It just meant he was human, and
Yeah.
it meant a human being had just took too much stress and he needed to back away for a little bit. But when you try to attack his father in the midst of a death, that's way too much. And I think that was very out of line of the media to do that.
It was extremely disrespectful. It's the problem that I have with media now is that they reach. I mean, so many of them. They're reaching for a story. They take any little thing, any little morsel, and they twist it out of context. And they really impose and dig into people's lives, personal lives, and it's just it's really unfortunate. But for them to just stoop so low, and I think a few people within the documentary even admitted, like, hey, journalistically, we were in the gutter, and the way they went after Michael in that particular way.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't blow up. He didn't lose it. I mean, he just stopped talking to the media, in which I don't blame him for doing so. But that was just trash for them to attack him in such a way, in such a vulnerable moment. A guy who has been available to the media all the time, been nice to the media, giving you interviews when you want to, just been a great ambassador for the sport. And then you come after him and attach his unfortunate father's death to his gambling. I wouldn't call it an issue or a habit because he was just gambling. He's just competing, you know. But yeah, it was very unfortunate, and you know, but we see things like that still now. You know, especially I always think about how Michael would fare in today's social media environment. You know, they didn't have the 24-hour news cycle. They didn't have every tweet looking into you and dissecting your every move. You didn't have those type of things. And so I wonder how things would have played out at that time in terms of that narrative around his father's death in today's social media storm. And maybe it would have affected him even more mentally and torn him apart. So maybe it's good that it didn't go through. He didn't go through that at that particular time.
Well, one thing I will say, at least about the players in this age, this modern era, excuse me, that is adaptation in everything that we do, and I believe that Jordan would have done a lot of the same things. I mean, obviously being a businessman that he is now, and even was in a sense then. It was a question brought up when we was doing Spot on Sports, or whether he would be able to handle, this day and age of social media, but. I think it's easiest to say that it wouldn't happen looking at a time back then when it wasn't around. But at one point, at least half of my life that I can say it wasn't around. So I
Mm-hmm.
still get a sense of being able to separate social media from reality. And let's be honest, a little bit of reality has been poured into social media and vice versa, to the point where people, you literally get up in the morning and Twitter is like the newspaper.
Right.
Facebook is like the
Hey,
newspaper.
that's what I do when I wake up. I check Twitter. I check what the trending
That's the
topic.
first, like, my dad, my dad said this, and he was preaching a sermon once. He said, some people wake up and you don't even make sure that your legs work.
Yeah.
You just open your phone, you
Oh,
pop open Twitter. You don't even know if you really breathing and your whole body working and everything. But just a little joke on that. I don't want to segue away too much. But
yeah.
yeah, I just think there was a lot of adaptability for Jordan to be able to manage himself in this day and time. And again, gambling isn't a big thing. These NBA players do that now, and I
Right.
think even it's just a big deal when you're the face of the NBA, when you're the number one player. If
Mhm.
LeBron sneezed the wrong way, cameras are gonna be on him too.
Right.
It's the same exact thing. I do want to get into a little bit about his baseball career, and I know you'll know this a lot better than me. I don't want what we got in the documentary, so let's segue away from this. Let's go to you early 90s
Okay.
or latest mid 90s, watching Jordan walk on that baseball field and watching him play for the White Sox. What was that like? Was he successful in any sense of playing baseball?
Well, I'll say this. You know, first, like, I love basketball. I'm good at basketball. Well, I was. Let me say, I was good at basketball. When my knees were a little better. I've had surgery on both
I
of my
understand.
knees.
I
You know,
understand.
But in my heyday, listen, when we were at TSU, I won 2 intramural championships, man. They would try to play me and call me old man, but man, I was breaking them young boys off. But but I love baseball. I am fascinated with the game of baseball, the poetry of the game, understanding the game. I really love it. I just can't play it worth a damn, right?
Right.
But to see Mike go over to baseball was intriguing to me at that particular time. But I wasn't a big fan of him quitting basketball in the middle of his heyday and going to play baseball. But at that point, you thought Michael Jordan could do no wrong. So you figure if he's scoring 50 points on the basketball court, he's going to go give you 35 home runs and 21 RBIs on the baseball end. And so that's what we expected. He looked nice in the uniform. You know, they sent him down to Double-A. But I think the documentary did a good job of just depicting what he went through, and I think it was important. And I learned a lot just watching. Like, let's think about it. In the overall sense of it, you know, he only played for I think a year or so, year and a half. He stopped playing not because he quit or he wasn't any good, because there was a work shortage. There was a strike.
Yeah.
And so they gave him a built-in excuse to leave and go back to basketball. But when you think about it, Mike went and played the game because he and his dad talked about it, and that was his first love to play baseball, right? Mike went to play professional baseball and hadn't played baseball in 15 years. So I think at that point in 94, Mike was 33, I think. No, 63. Yeah. So Mike was 31. Mike was 31, I think, at that time. And hadn't played baseball in 15 years. But somehow whips himself into shape, gets in the right mindset, goes on a 13-game hitting streak as the season begins. Then they start throwing him some changeups, and he ends the season with a 200 batting average. Now, on the surface, it's like, 200, that's not good at all. But for a guy who hadn't played baseball in 2 decades,
that's not bad.
That's pretty good, man. And, you know, imagine if he would have stuck with the game. I think we could have saw Mike in the major leagues making some noise, not saying he's going to be an MVP caliber player, but he could have been in there 270, 280, 290, really contributing to a team if he was able to stick with it. So as I learned from the documentary that, you know, he really wasn't that bad at baseball. And the timing just led him back into basketball. But, you know, what you did learn from it is that whatever he decided to put his mind to, he was going to do whatever he needed to do to prepare himself to be the best and put forth the best product on the field. And he did that on the baseball field as best to his ability.
Well, in this little time frame, we had the Chicago Bulls, you know, still being a pretty decent team in the NBA. Actually, better than decent. Let me not disrespect them like that. They were still good. Led by Scottie Pippen at this time, who was now coming out of the shadow of Michael Jordan. And it was time to see what Scottie would do. And we all know how it kind of went. Scottie still averaged about 25 points a game, was still very good defensively. But there was a little mishap where he quit on the team in the 1994 playoffs. We thought Scottie was the good guy. We thought Scottie, aside from the contract and accepting $18 million for 7 years, we thought Scottie could do no wrong. Let's take Jordan out this equation. Did our opinion of Scottie Pippen change after that playoff series?
You tell me what you think.
You know what? No. And let me tell you why. And I had a kind of difference of opinion, and I'm taking a lot of context away from the documentary. This is just player mentality. When in a situation that Scottie is in the boiling point, that I think it was just the weight that Michael had to deal with that fell on Scottie in the end. Knowing that you're a really good number 2, right? But it's a reason why the number 1 is the number 1.
Okay.
It's just certain aspects of this guy and certain aspects of this player that you have to be able to face in order to say you sit in the realm as MJ, as Kobe, as LeBron. These are guys that face number 1 scrutiny day in and day out. When the team doesn't succeed, we attack LeBron Every season he doesn't win the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Every single season. And when that first time when the Bulls are expected to do what the Bulls usually do, and now it falls on your shoulders as Scottie Pippen, and then you quit on your team. Jordan said it best. He said, Scotty ain't gonna be able to get out of that one. Like that's real. That's real, and that's tough, and that's and that's gonna be, and that's a strike for Scotty, saying that this was your opportunity to be able to lead a team
Right,
in the
right,
most crucial moment of your season, and you were not able to do so.
right. Well, here's what I think. Here are my thoughts on that. And I didn't. Well, I always knew about that moment, but again, the documentary gives you a kind of renewed context and gives you more
Right,
details as
little
to
detail.
exactly what happened. But so on the surface, you know, I think it's game 2 against the Knicks. They're arch nemesis, and they're down by 1 to win the game. And in every situation, every coach calls on their main player, either to take the shot or to create the shot. In every situation, right? Your number one player. Here's Scottie averaging 22 points a game that year, like 8 rebounds, 6 assists, having an all-star year, all-star MVP, all that good stuff. This is his moment that he's been waiting for. He sat behind Michael
Hmm.
all these years because if Michael was on the team, this was Michael's ball, no question, right? But now this is Scottie's moment, and Phil draws up a play for Tony Kukoc. And not only does he draw up a play for Tony Kukoc is a rookie. So here's Scottie, 3 championships, been with this team since 1987, went through the lumps of playing behind Mike, waiting for his opportunity. Here's his chance to be the guy and win the game, and his coach draws a play up for a rookie. Tony, wouldn't you be mad as well?
No, yeah, definitely.
You
I forgot which one of the in one of the previous shows where God, I know you help me out on this one. Where his coach drew up a play when he was supposed to be guarding Michael Jordan.
Oh,
Um,
like Elo with the Cavaliers, yeah, something
that
like that.
yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that situation.
So Scottie, yeah. So Scottie, I mean, Scottie was disrespected. Scottie was extremely disrespected. I would have been disrespected too and been pissed off. So I understand what I mean. There was a lot going into that moment, but more so, this was Scottie's chance to shine. You don't get these game-winning opportunities all the time, and Phil screwed him in that moment, and he was pissed. But that said, and then they want him to take the ball out, not even be on the court, but take the ball out. That's even more disrespect, me, because the dude who takes the ball out, you just throwing it in, it's a couple seconds left. Like, they don't even want you involved in the play.
Yeah, you're not even involved. I get it.
Right. And so, all that said, you still got to this point with your teammates. You still got to compete. You may be pissed. You can talk about that later, but you walk your butt out there on that court with your teammates and support your teammates. And you can talk about the other stuff later. And you go on the court and you finish the game out. You could very well could have got a rebound, a putback, or something like that. And so, although I understand Scottie's frustration to the highest degree, yes, I understand, but I cannot understand him not walking on the court and being out there with his teammates, supporting his teammates. I mean, they won the game, but when you can see Phil's face as they walk into the locker room, he's like, dude, I'm over this stuff. And so I think that Scottie's image took a hit with that, but they came back and they took that series to 7 games. And they could have arguably could have won that in the 7th game. And so that team rebounded. They rallied around Scottie. But yeah, my opinion didn't change of Scottie. I still think he's a great player. But I just think, he made that mistake. Listen, he made that mistake. Jordan quit on the team for 2 years,
Mm-hmm,
and he snitches and throws teammates under the bus. I'ma still go with Scottie. I'ma
You're
still go
never
with
gonna let
Scottie.
you never gonna let that live, huh? You
I'ma
never
still
gonna
go.
let that live.
You know what I'm saying?
And kind of going forward after this, MJ begins to make a comeback about
Yeah,
2 seasons later or so. Um, you definitely take your ass on the court, Jabari. Gotcha.
yeah, yeah,
uh, yeah,
yeah.
no, but that's what we were saying. And I was just kind of trying to allude to earlier that those are leader things that you do, even when the ball is not always in your court. Figuratively speaking, you still have to show that okay, it may not be in your, but also it's a team thing. Let's
Right.
not forget that. Obviously, in the last closing minutes, you want to give the ball to your best guy,
Yeah.
let's take away that's individuality stuff. Let's take that away and remember that this is a team sport. If Phil Jackson draws up something where he thinks Kukoc could be the guy, you
Mm-hmm.
don't argue that
You
to an
support
extent.
you support
Yeah,
your coach.
you have to support because your
Yeah.
teammate again. Jordan was good about that before he retired, saying that he wanted to get his teammates in a position to
Mm-hmm.
be winners. And that's what you do. I think if you're Scotty, obviously, this is your opportunity to be able to make the game winning shot. This is your opportunity to be respectively noticed as I am a number one guy. But
Right.
again,
Right.
sometimes there are other ways. There are other ways to be noticed like that, or there are at least other ways to be a factor in your team's advancement. And I think obviously it could have went either way because Scotty had a taken a better advantage of that situation. I
Yeah.
think so, but was he wrong? Obviously not.
But I'll say this, and I think we can segue to the next question. But what I have learned about Scott, I came into this documentary very high on Scotty, and I'm still very high on Scotty. But what I did learn from watching this documentary, we still got 2 more episodes left, and I know my homeboys will probably they want to hear me say this, but what was clear to me is that Scotty what just wasn't cut out to be a number one, and that moment showed it. You know, he was a strong number two, but that moment showed me that Scotty was not cut out to be the number one, to lead a franchise, to be that guy, because you don't do that in that situation. You support your teammates, but he's just also very soft spoken, you know. And I
Hmm.
think, and we'll talk about it later in this broadcast. It takes some a-holeness. It takes being brash. It takes being a jerk oftentimes to lead teams and to get the highest results. And so I just that wasn't in Scotty's MO, and I learned that more so within these episodes.
Jabbar, we appreciate you adding a little extra spice to that question, man. Kind of going forward, MJ's comeback. Was it more for him or more for the team? And I think I'll take that question. I think it was clearly obvious it was for him.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you get to a point where you retired on your own terms, where you did say in the retirement speech that the door is still open for you to
Right,
return to the game of
right.
basketball.
He
And
did say that.
obviously, yeah, and obviously, the baseball thing didn't work out, and they had the whole the supplemental player thing or the side player thing they were going to do, where they would put the extras in and have them play well. You knowing that you're Michael Jordan, you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be in any situation where it's like you're just some scrub being tossed out there on the baseball field
Right, right.
when the rest of the greats and the starters don't have to go out. And that, I think, serves as a reminder for Jordan that I am, I am me. I am a number one in some aspect, or at least was when it came to the basketball court, though all of that didn't translate to baseball. And I think for him, when the news circulating around that he had pack his bags and, he's
Mm-hmm.
not good about this and these things, I think that it kind of put the drive back together.
Yeah,
Whereas I have to reprove to myself
yeah,
that I'm still one of the greatest athletes to ever step
yeah.
into the game of sports. And
Right.
so you come back, and that's you. That's not the team. The Bulls were still good. They were still good, and whether Jordan had came back or not, obviously it led to a championship the following season. But that wasn't a move for Rodman. That wasn't a move for Pippen and those guys. That was all just Jordan. All
Right.
Jordan.
Right. No, I mean, you make some great points, and I think like you mentioned, that was for him. That was for him.
Hmm.
That team that year was not as good as the previous year. They had lost some guys and they were struggling a little bit, but that was for him. I mean, I think going to baseball really helped him kind of refresh, get the right mindset, kind of get away from the pressures of the game and just be one of the guys, be a regular guy in the locker room, down in Birmingham, Alabama, and going to these other different small cities, just to be one of the guys in the clubhouse. I think that did a lot for him to just see how these other guys who are just working hard at the AA level, trying to achieve their dream. And he's a guy who's already been to the pinnacle, but can come back and still respect the grind of those who are still trying to get to that pinnacle. And I think that drove him even more. But at the same time, I think he missed the game. You're watching Patrick Ewing make it to the finals and losing to Hakeem. You see Hakeem sweeping the Orlando Magic, and he's two-time MVP, and everybody's talking about Hakeem the Dream. He's the face of the NBA, and I think the competitive side of Jordan said, "Hey,
Woke back up.
yeah, let me come back and see what this is about here, or what have you." And so I think it was for him, like you said, he had to kind of reprove himself. I think sometimes when we're away from the game, I've gone through that in my career from time to time, where I've been blessed to achieve a lot of highs, but then sometimes you fall into that kind of creative lull, or you may be in a situation where you begin to doubt yourself sometimes, or you haven't had a great achievement in a while, and you begin to question yourself, and you have to kind of get back and kind of talk to yourself and say, hey, let's get back to the mountaintop. Let's get back to the pinnacle. Let's create little competitive drives within yourself, compete within yourself, and see, hey, can I beat my last goal? And let's get back on top, and let's one of my favorite verses from Jay-Z says, sometimes you got to remind these people who they messing with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And let them know who's boss. And so I think that was about for Mike to come back in the game, and where there was his sanctuary on the basketball court, and just now that you come to grips with dad being dead, let's get back to the game that you love so much, and let's play it, and let's move on with our life. And so I think the comeback was for him. It helped him from a therapy standpoint, but it also eventually helped the team continue to get some victories.
Oh, most definitely. And there may have been a small amount of just a little love for one of his first loves was playing baseball. He alluded
Right.
to that at a young age of wanting to be a baseball player, even around the time that he was playing basketball. And I think maybe that served as a little recharge experience for him to be able to, mess around another sport for a little bit, kind of
Mm-hmm.
regain his sense of competitiveness. Because remember, it was all gone when he retired. It was
Right.
gone. His
He
father
said he
leaving.
said the desire was gone.
Yeah, the desire was gone. So to be on the outside of the NBA looking in, and again, like you said, seeing Elijah Wan, seeing everyone else and those guys still playing a high level, and someone else in the NBA now being regarded as one of the best. Hold on, because when I retired, I was still good. I
Right.
was
Right.
still great. And
Right.
Jabari says MJ avoided controversy his entire career. When MLB had controversy, he went back to the NBA. I can't say that he avoided controversy, Jabari, man. I think Jordan saw a lot of it, and remember Damian said it as well. He spoke to the media anytime he had to. They asked that man 150 million questions about his gambling problems. They asked
Mm-hmm.
that man 150 more questions about gambling when his father died. And I think for
Mm-hmm.
any man to be able to stand in the face of that and to have to still be sane, that's a lot to have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Jordan definitely, he took his fair share of blows when he needed to. Damien, I see you trying to get your light together. Like
I
the
was
sun
trying
sets
to.
in the east, the sun sets in the west, my friend.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No. 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 Okay. I got it. I got it right here.
There you go. There you go. Oh, but yeah, I think he